Welcome to Mastering Dialogue Practice. And we're going to talk today a little bit more, review some principles, and talk to right now about how to approach those difficult situations. And so I prepared some review in this slide in the deck, and it's available to you, but I want to look at slide 13 right now. And there's a path of action that goes on regarding every crucial conversation. So what we really have to do, go to the next one, Becca. Okay, remember this, that how you're feeling now is not a function of what people are actually saying and doing. It is a function of how you see what people are saying and doing. So this is the beginning of looking at our own stories. Before we go into a conversation with anybody, a crucial conversation, we need to look at our own story. So click to the next one, back up, please. So again, look at the situation. What are the actual things that you know to be facts, true, about whatever your issue is? What's true? What's an observable thing? What's something that actually happened? Information that is objective. And what is it that your focus is? And then remember, stories are your interpretation. And we do need to tell stories because that ties everything together and helps somebody understand where we're coming from. Go to the next one, Becca. So we really need to be aware of our facts that are driving our conversation. And one of the most challenging things about crucial conversations is the work that we have to do first. And that is look at your story. And what in your story is a fact and it's an absolutely true thing, and what is your interpretation of those things? And remember, the same facts can use, many stories can come out of just one set of facts. So we got to examine our stories, and we got to kind of surrender our certainty if we're going to have this conversation with anybody about anything, whether it's a person way above you in power or it's a person below you in power. Look at what you bring to the conversation. Okay, let's go to the 4 steps back. I think that's the next one. Analyze the story. What did you see in here? No, I'll get you there. Okay, it starts on slide 18. There you are. All right, good. So begin with your heart, state your positive intent. So in this issue, Stephanie, that you want to talk to, and I hear you saying you want to talk up, that it's a vertical conversation that you want to have. And if you in that issue, think about, start with your heart, and what is your intent and your positive intent in sharing the story and your opinion, because your opinion matters. In crucial conversations, there's a pool of information we all put into. So what is your positive intent? And that's how you would start. Then you share the facts. And that's why it's really important that we know what are the facts and what is our perception of the facts, because we get really emotional about our perception of the facts. And so being open to looking at your story and maybe acknowledging that your interpretation of what's going on might not be accurate because it's your interpretation. And do you need to look at your story and be honest and maybe make adjustments with how you deliver where you are and what you're perceiving? Next one, Becca. Then you do share your story, and this is where you don't always share the whole picture, but you share what makes the information that you want to relay make sense. And as you share your story, at the end of it, you conclude with, it leads me to conclude, this is why I believe, this is my perception. And I'm wondering about, how we might move forward and how we might address this issue. And then 4 is kind of asking that, ask them to share. What's your perception of this? How do you feel about it? So whatever it is that you need to talk about, you start way back at the beginning and you understand those 4 steps. So I don't know what your issue is, but how could you apply these steps to the person you want to talk to? How do you begin with intent, positive intent?
I didn't know if you're asking this like literally asking, or if you're saying like, this is putting the question out there.
I'm literally asking what, you don't have to use any names, but what is this thing that, Becca, would you go back just as we talked through it to the first slide, that slide before? Okay, so State your positive intent. You want to have this you don't want to have it. I know. Who said that, Jen? I don't want to have these conversations. Okay. But we need to have them because they're in the way of everything. So you begin with your heart and your positive intent. And we look at our stories. This is where we look at our stories. We analyze the facts. We take a step back from what we're so convicted is right and that we're right. And we ask ourselves, okay, let's step back from that a little bit and let me look at it in a more objective way, because that's going to help you deliver a better story. And that's going to help you open up a deeper conversation. So whatever the issue is, can you state your positive intent?
My intent is for my scholars to want to stay in school.
Okay, so if we're going to start with our heart and say, I am, so we're going to state that positive intent. So we're going to say, I am deeply dedicated to my scholars, and I truly believe in what we do here at Compass. And right now, I want to do everything I can to make sure our scholars stay at Compass and are happy here. Okay, what are your facts?
But I have to pass it to somebody else, because if I share any more facts, I'm just going to be airing like laundry that doesn't need to be in a big meeting.
Well, okay, so what would facts be? You know, and I don't know. Okay, let me share a crucial conversation that I need to have with Liz. One of the things that we have realized with circles is that when we get into climate circles, issues come out, are raised up that are of concern for the organization. And I am compiling those issues, and I need to take that information to Liz. So I'm going to begin with my heart and my positive intent. And how do I do that? So I am deeply committed to our training vision here at Compass, to our pillars. And right now, our restorative practices are being implemented. And I just really believe in the power of those practices to bring us closer together. But we're getting information. I'm going to facts. We're getting information from the climate circles, and issues are being raised. And I'm being asked, what's going to happen with the issues are being raised? Are they going to be shared? If they are shared, will they be heard? And I really believe that it's important for the program to share some of those issues, what the priority issues are coming out of the circle. And here's why. If we don't share and acknowledge the results of restorative circles, I'm beginning to hear, so what's the point? Why are we doing them? I don't want to waste my time. And there's validity in that. So I really want to raise up what those issues are in order for us to empower our ability to keep communication open and to make sure that we are hearing and responding to the needs indicated by the staff. And I need to lift this up, and I just wonder what your perception is of it, how you feel about that, and how would you want the circles to work and the information that we get from them? Okay, I don't know, did that help?
Deborah, can I provide some feedback?
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say that I think that what I heard from what you just said, I'm gonna be Liz.
Be Liz.
Your tone seemed very welcoming and open. And when you say I wonder, that leaves me open to I guess just open.
It's
I
open.
wonder what you think of X, Y, and Z. Sorry, there's a train going by.
Well, thank you. That's good feedback. I thought you were going to be critical. So thank you. I love that. It's not easy. It's a conversation I need to have. I don't want to have it. I don't want to bring negative information as a result of things. But if I don't, and I believe Liz cares deeply, and she'll say, for God's sakes, you're going to tell me if it's not working. Well, we need to lift it up then. And it's a real conversation. I'm being very open and vulnerable here. So hope nobody goes and uses my words against me, but I guess that's it. That's what stories do. What did Deborah intend? Deborah didn't intend anything except to have a really open and meaningful conversation about what we're finding out in our circles and how can we respond to that. That's a big issue coming up for me. That's very real for me. And that's a conversation I'm going to schedule for very soon. They're in conferences next week, so it'll be the week after. So any other Liz feedback? I got leaders in here that can give me any other Liz feedback. Would you respond to me if I came to you that way? You gotta just shout out. I can't see you. I wish you were all in a room with me. Gosh, I'd like that. That's why I love conferences so much. Would you listen to me if you were
My question would be how do you lead into even like say scheduling that conversation, or are you giving Liz like, this is what I'd like to discuss, or I don't know, I guess that like even lead into establishing the conversation, what would be some tips with that?
Well, I would indicate, I don't want to go into, I don't want to give her a PowerPoint and, you know, I don't want to send her all the information. I can provide that to her. I really want to talk to her about our ability to share that together, she and I, so that we can take that information and how can we respond to it. So that's really what I'm asking. So I would schedule a meeting and I would have Tammy do it. I like to schedule an hour meeting with Liz and let her know that it's about the issues with the issues that about restorative circles and what we're learning. So I would set it up like that. Again, very open. I don't want Liz to think it's bad. See, because I could do this very differently. So here's how I could do this differently. I could go in, hey, you know, we could start our meeting and say, look, what I want to do today is I want to let you know the issues that are coming out of the circles that we're having. Now, we've done a lot of collaborative, of the community building circles, but we've done a few climate, and consistently out of the climate circles where there are certain issues. And I really think you need to know what these issues are because, you know, you're the key to our addressing them. And if you don't hear them and see them and act on them, you know, then people are saying, what's the point of doing circles? So I need you to see and understand what people see as issues so that we can decide what you want to do and how you want to move forward with this. And if circles are really going to work, but you know, you need to hear it and you need to respond, and as soon as possible. How is that different? And here's the data. Here's my PowerPoint. Liz loves data. Oh, here you go. Here's a ChatGPT summary of all the issues and how you want to address them.
Can I chime in?
Yeah, sure you can.
So I don't know why this visual came to mind when you were giving the example that followed the steps 1, 2, 3, 4. But when you were doing it, I was like imagining kind of this image of like, let's say you're holding a bunch of books and the books fell on the floor and you're saying, look at these books. Oh my gosh, my intention was to balance them. Will you please come help me? And together we're going to pick up these books. It felt very like this collaborative, like, I'm trying, you have capabilities, I have capabilities, I'm carrying these things, it's falling, help me bring this up together.
Okay.
And then your example that you gave it just now that wasn't following it, it felt very like you threw the books at the person. So it's like, it's a very like me against them, or me, you know, it's a us versus them kind of feeling. And so it's like, we're trying to just pick up the books together. Nobody's at fault. And I can't pick up the books alone. Kind of, does that make sense? Or did I just convolute it?
Sense to me. Does it make sense to other people too? Absolutely. And again, you'll notice in the second one, I let go of I and went to you. You know, you need to know this, you're responsible, you need to tell me what to do, you need to respond, you. And every time I said you, I threw another book at her. You know, absolutely. But you need to, and the thing, and is that second way justifiable in terms of delivering the information that she needs to get? Well, yeah, it's full of information she needs to have. So yeah, that's a justifiable conversation. Is it going to be effective? No, I don't think that second conversation would be effective at all. We'd spend the first part of the meeting with a defensive response to how I brought everything up. And that's justifiable too. So look, and why do I want to, that's why these 4 steps just had a huge impact on me. Why? And I'm pretty good with communication. I can talk to just about anybody about just about anything, except my son. It's funny, isn't it? The people closest to you, I mean, sometimes they're most difficult. So I'll be using these techniques with my son. That's one of those conversations that you don't want to have, but you know you need to have. But you got to start with that intent. And there's a lot of it. And so look at the story. You know, I have to tell you, and okay, I'm being open and vulnerable. And you may use it against me, and that's just life, I guess. But remember the clever stories? It's all, you know, it's not my fault. I didn't do anything. It's all your fault. Or it's helpless. Why should I even do it? With this information I need to give to Liz, I've needed to give it to her now for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks maybe. And my clever story that got in my way and it left in training last week was, well, I'm helpless. I can't really make any difference. They're not really, she's not going to hear me. I mean, she should know this already. And I can give it to her, but it probably won't make a difference. So, well, gee, Deborah, that's productive. I mean, that's the story I was telling myself. I don't know that to be true. As a matter of fact, if I analyze the facts in that story, the facts that have been stated are completely different. Liz has declared that if it's not working, let me know. And I want your feedback. And and all the things that she says are true, then I have to believe that. And what is my intent in sharing this information? My intent is to have a collaboration exist between leadership and staff so that concerns can be lifted up, can be heard, can be responded to, so that we can more deeply connect, you know, in our WIG #1, and that we can build trust and we can let go of some of this hurt that we're all carrying. People are carrying hurt from years ago, you know, because the stories they've told themselves have insulated them in their ability to see those hurts from a different perspective. You know, so I know people have been hurt. I understand that. I understand that. And I know hurt doesn't just go away. You carry hurt in the muscles and the tissues of your body. Crucial conversations help us release what we've carried for a long time, but we have to look at our own stories. Everything you've told yourself about why you were hurt and how you were hurt and what people meant to do and all the things you say about that all the time, everywhere. Yeah, that's your story. That's your perception and experience of what happened. And I'm not denigrating your experience. That's real. That's there, that's real. But if you're going to have conversations about it, you got to stop. You got to take a deep breath and you have to analyze your own story. My story was I'm helpless. I had to look at that and say, well, that's just nonsense because you're not helpless. This is your position in the company. You have this valuable information and you're deeply committed to making things work. What's the matter with you? Make the appointment. But I had to change my story. I had to change what I was telling myself. So as you look back on things that have happened to you, can you see perhaps how you've insulated that story and you've kept it right? Because that's how you live and justify and continue to manage what that hurt caused. If we're going to have a crucial conversation with hurts that are deep, we have to look at that and we have to say, okay, can I tell my story differently? Is my story more me and what I've made it than what happened? Can we look at it? I don't know. So maybe there are some things you can't look at, but I think there are many things we can look at and we can adjust the story that we tell ourselves. Am I making sense to y'all? Anybody got any comments here?
I think you make a lot of sense, and I feel like it's so nice to look at it in someone else's, so I appreciate that you shared an example. And I also am wondering, and this is really like coming up in like just a lot of conversations I'm having with teachers, I don't talk to folks like necessarily in the other departments, but with teachers, just when there is a lot of communication coming from management, and I'm just putting myself out there, right? So in, you know, when communication is coming and when the communication is, you know, hitting, and And when there is a lack of trust, or there has been an argument, like you said, if there's like a hurt that's already sort of in there, then if I'm alone preparing for this conversation, I could just feel myself going, well, last time I noticed that you were kind of an ass. And the 3 times we talked about this, you were really rude. And we agreed you'd email me, but you know, I'm looking at your bullet list here. Like I can see not shaking myself out of my, whatever you want to call it, my feeling of righteousness or my, you know, my hurt from before. And so I could see a benefit in preparing for this with a partner that I trust and sharing the goal that I have and maybe saying out loud before I go into it, because the last time I tried it was not successful, for sure. Left the meeting basically lying and saying, yeah, we'll do this. And 100% not even believing myself.
Saying yes and screaming no inside, which was one of the examples they used, you know, and then we moved to silence. We don't say anything. And yeah, and I hear and I get that hurts can be deep. And the more you tell yourself your story about the hurt, the more you solidify it, crystallize it, you know, keep it, and it's crystallized really, you're keeping it alive in your body, you know, and you're defending it because it's a hurt and you feel the need to defend it. If we go into a conversation defending that, we're going to have a very difficult time working the steps because we're still back at 1. We're still back at examining our intent, and 2, having to go back and look at the facts, and 3, okay, maybe they were the facts and maybe you were an ass and that did happen and you have been rude. Okay. Maybe you see me in such a way that you feel that's justified. Okay, but we're not in a positive cycle here. So I need to examine what I want. Do I want to be able to go to somebody and say, essentially, you know, you pissed me off in the past and you treated me badly and you need to shape up and we need to work together. So let's talk about it. Yeah, that's not going to work. So, and I don't know, I'm just looking, and for me, I shared with you, Liz, and I've worked that through in last training. I mean, that was the conversation I worked on all last week. And in terms of conversations that really make a difference, my son and his partner, we live together for a variety of reasons, and I still pretty much support things. And my story is they should do more because I am the head of the household. Well, you can imagine how that flies. And in every conversation I have, that's the story I tell myself. You know, they really need to, I'm convinced I have the right story. Well, you know what? Their perception of our life is very different. And they see themselves contributing in all kinds of ways that aren't monetary. And so we get into this lock in our relationships where I think I'm right and he's sure he's right. And it just deteriorates. We never really get to the story. And we're good. He's well-trained in communication. We're both well-trained. You know, I get all the time from my son, Mom, you teach this stuff. You ought to know that you're being perceived as critical. That's not my intent. I didn't mean to be critical. But if that's his perception, now I have that reality to deal with. So I need to have a conversation where I look at my intent and I look at and I open up my story. I need to have a different story. I need to have a story that allows his contribution. It's tough when we're close and we have deep and personal and feeling investment in it. It's tough. You want to get into groups and work on one? We got time. That's what I was going to do. You want to just ask, what do you want to do?
There are a couple or there's a statement or a question, I guess, in the chat followed up by statements. I don't know if you want to look at those really quick before we jump in.
I can't see it. So yeah, let's look at it.
Okay, so a question was asked, How do you recommend approaching someone who approached you in the second way, so not in the 1 through 4 step way? Almost as if a crucial conversation was attempted, but done with books thrown.
Okay.
How do you move forward?
Okay, so this person came and had the second conversation, threw the books at you. Okay, so that was the behavior that you saw. And what is the story that you told yourself about that behavior? Was the person who put that in the chat willing to respond? No?
It's me again. I feel like I'm leading this. I'm so sorry. I keep like
Oh, no, that's
taking
good.
over the mic.
Go for it. Tell me.
Can you just repeat the question? I didn't hear it exactly.
So what was the story you told yourself about the behavior you saw?
I told myself I believed what was told to me and it was hurtful.
Okay.
It
so-
wasn't like collaborative, it wasn't open, it was like a closed story told at me
Okay.
without input.
Okay.
Without my input being asked. It was like no conversation was invited. There was no openness.
So what story, so remember we have the how things happen. So we have the feel, and we have what's the formula where this formula, and then it goes into the feel, and then the feel goes into action. So your perception of those behaviors made you say, what about that person? When you think about that person, how do you think about them? What do those behaviors mean to you?
Those behaviors mean that they're not open, that there's no room for growth, that there's no hope, which I know is not true, but that is the feeling I get. Like like it's closed.
Right. Okay.
And I feel empathy for the person because I think people don't behave that way when they're healthy. So it makes me curious, but also helpless in knowing how to approach it, especially it being a professional setting, you know?
Well, and in your very careful consideration, what happens in our story is we judge it, and this isn't a healthy response. A healthy person wouldn't respond this way. So the facts are this person addressed you in a unopen, kind of aggressive way. And what is another story you could tell yourself about why that person behaved or how that person behaved? Is there another story you could tell yourself?
Yeah, so you had, I don't remember the slides because it's not on there, but you talked about like being the victim or thinking it's all my fault, their fault, that sort of thing. So the other kind of knee-jerk reaction I would have is like, it has nothing to do with me. Everything they said about what they were saying is truly a reflection on them. And I feel like it's somewhere in the middle, right? Like there's got to be some truth, and then there's also got to be that openness of a back and forth. But rather than the initial reaction of, oh, I'm going to just shut down, there's no moving forward, it's all my fault. I almost feel like the second response is like, it's not my fault at all, it's all them.
That tends to be the blue response, So do you want, so the question then becomes, this is obviously a crucial conversation. You have strong feelings, you have differing opinions, you care deeply. So do you need to have a crucial conversation with this person? Do you want to have a crucial conversation with this person? And if you do, is there a positive outcome that you're seeking? What would be your intent? Is your intent to be heard? Is there an organizational intent? I mean, what is it that you need to say in this crucial conversation? Do you just want to clear the air between you as people?
Yeah, that last part. And then in that clearing the air, it would also create just a more comfortable
Interaction all the time.
Exactly.
So I think a crucial conversation is important. And I think a statement of intent would be, I care very deeply about our communication. I care very deeply about how our relationship affects everything that we do and feel. And I really would like to have an open conversation about our last conversation, and this has happened before. And I felt shut down and excluded and kind of battered by what was said. This isn't the first time it's happened. It's happened before. And go ahead to the the next slide, Beck, so I can follow the steps. So, and then share some of your stories. So, I mean, I really want to have a relationship where we can talk and communicate. This seems to be a pattern, and I really don't want that pattern to be there, because I deeply care and deeply want to have a good relationship. And it seems to me, let's go to 4, that it's something we could talk about, and it's something that we could communicate about. And I know how deeply committed you are to what you do, and I know how you care. And so these past experiences have been something that has been confusing to me, and I really would like to change them and develop a better relationship, just because a better relationship is a good thing to do for us as we deal with each other. So, how do you see that? How do you feel about that conversation? How would you see us moving forward in a positive way? Did that make sense?
It did. Thank you.
Anybody else? You got to practice, you guys. I mean, I practiced like crazy all this week, because I learned it last week and I practiced this week so that I could share examples with you. And it gets easier, but you got to do it.
Deb,
And
can you see people raising their hands? I don't know if you could see it, just
can't
to.
see, Becca needs to tell me.
Yeah, I was just about to say it. I was just letting Deborah finish that thought, but yeah.
Okay.
Deborah, there is one hand raised. One hand went down, but there is one hand up. So Siobhan, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I just can't see it on my screen.
Well, hello. Actually,
hello.
Joanna had her hand up before mine, so I'm gonna let her go, and then I'll go.
Okay.
I just want to piggyback kind of off what Mandy was saying in her scenario. Sometimes when these conversations are had with us, it starts with, we want you to assume positive intentions.
Okay.
However, that piece of explaining the positive intent on the part of the person delivering the message is not there. It's just, you need to assume positive intentions. So that's a struggle for me coming into these conversations.
And I hear that. And everybody in this, on all levels of the organization, we all have to do it. It can't be one direction. It has to be vertical. It has to work vertically and horizontally. And I think that we need to hold people accountable for that. If people come at you and all the time and say assume positive intent, but you don't feel they mean it, I mean, or they don't give it themselves, I think that might be a crucial conversation to have. And I know that's hard if you're doing it up. If you're doing vertically, you're going up, you don't want to have that conversation. But I hope that leadership walks the talk and is open to these conversations. And I hope you're willing to try. And positive, and yes, that's a great way. We have it in our agreements, and it's a wonderful thing to say and assume, but it doesn't mean anything unless you explain it. Okay, so that means you all need to start with positive intent. Well, if I'm delivering that message to you, you all need to be positive. I need to tell you why I'm delivering the information, why it's important to me, and what my intention is in sharing the information, and what I expect to happen when I do. And I think it's fair to challenge that. And I don't know that you would want to challenge that in front of a group, but you might think through a crucial conversation to have, if it's a leader, if it's a supervisor, that you could have with them in a one-on-one. I think if you call things out in a group like this, sometimes you get pressure from the group, and that's not the best idea. I really believe these should be, in the best possible situation, they should be one-on-one, one-to-one. Did I
Okay,
answer?
can I hop in?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I got a doozy of stuff. Okay, so I don't know if y'all have noticed, but even when you were little and in school, those personalities are exactly the same as you grow up. So no matter if it's a job or a social event, those personalities are everywhere. Now, here's the situation. So in special education, everybody's angry. And, you know, we get actually, there's a lot of positive about special education, but we also have a lot of dysfunction and regulation with the parents.
Right.
Um, even sometimes with the kids. And I'm going to give 2 examples. So
Okay.
my thing is this. I have found that when you try to do an even playing field, which is what this is. Hey, I'm going to tell you my perspective. I want to hear your perspective. Let's come to an understanding. When emotions are heightened, that is usually not possible.
Okay.
So when it comes to special education, I can say to the parent or stop the IEP and say, you know what, let's reconvene at another time. And then I can try to calm things down. Here's the reason. People don't like being told no, ever, ever. And when you're being told no, you're automatically put in the one down position. And I think that's the struggle that we have in some of this stuff where we are being told, well, this is what you're going to do. And then we come back and say, well, wait, this is how it affects us in this way, this way. I understand where you're coming from, the healthy mirror. I hear you're saying A, B, and C, and I see your point, but this is how it actually will affect the rest of us. But the answer is still no. So that's when the value doesn't come in. And when you try to go back and there's no negotiation really. So I think the biggest part of this issue is there's a hierarchical structure here that cannot be even and won't be even. So no matter what your perspective is, it might be heard, but it will not be taken into consideration. And I think that's where the anger and the frustration comes. And then all of a sudden, you notice more and more people shut down. And then when you do talk to them, you get the rage coming out.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, and there's this line in Hamilton, smile more, talk less. But what happens hierarchically in a situation like our school, I'm not giving examples, I'm just saying, is that you do, this is not an appropriate term, it's just the term I know. You dwarf the company and the people who support the company so much, their voice is not, there is no equal conversation and there's not going to be, and it makes it clear. So then when you have these conversations between each other or the leads, whatever, it's never going to be pleasant. And so when you know that going in and you want these things, you want these methods to happen, you want to say, hey, can we talk about this? How do you see it? This is how I think it would benefit our kids. Going in knowing that all of that is great and fine, but it's going to be a no. And I think that's where this lovely plan is going to hit a wall every single time. Because you have to have the other person open and reasonable to listen and possibly affect change from it, even if it's minor, even if it's just validating you. And oftentimes when the person knows they're going to say no, they're already prepared for your reaction to be negative, even if it's not.
Yeah.
So that was a lot. I'm just saying that, you know, I deal with a lot of difficult people. My way of handling it is I listen intently. I hear everything they have to say. I take a break. I go back at it later. But that's in special ed where I work with the parents and I can get rage emails and give them a break and talk to them and then they're fine. It doesn't work like that with leadership because it is a one down position and you cannot really compensate for that. They are the decision makers, not us. That's, I know I kind of sound like a, you know, one of those. I'm just saying it's just, and it's not here, it's everywhere, corporate, anywhere. It's just, that's how things are laid out.
And if leaders really want it to be different, they have to change their story.
They're the ones who have to make
They
that
have to
choice.
engage and change their stories too. So, and again, I was immersed in this last week and I can see how it can work, but you know, it takes intention and planning and a willingness to take a risk everywhere, vertically up too. I mean, leadership was at the meeting. leadership is maybe here now. I don't know. I mean, hopefully leadership is hearing, that this is the challenge that they have. This is a consistent thing. This is something I need to lift up. This is coming out of our climate circles.
Well,
You know-
this is very effective in a lateral way, though.
Yeah.
Like if I had a run-in with Becca, I could easily approach her and say, hey, something went down. I'm sorry. It's uncomfortable for both of us. Can we talk?
I think.
And then we talk.
Yeah, and I was thinking as you were talking, even if we can't do it vertically right now, gosh, it would change our lives if we practiced it laterally. Because we have lots of hurts and things laterally that we've carried from before that have affected our relationships, that are keeping us from interacting completely with each other now. And I would challenge you all to maybe take a look at that and be brave enough to have a crucial conversation around it, because that crucial conversation could change the nature of that whole relationship and the life you're leading around that relationship. There's a hand up. Who has your hand up?
Stephanie has her hand.
Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie. Okay, go ahead.
Thanks. I think it's just so interesting to listen to what Siobhan is saying, like within, the special ed environment and apply it. I'm sure I saw several people nodding and thinking about it in their own situation. And I do think, Deborah, that what is critical right here is to come back to us later and say, yes, I met with all of the directors and cabinet and everybody's on board, and they're gonna they want to have these, because if not, it really doesn't. It's good to hear about it, and we can practice it laterally. I'm not saying it wouldn't be good. It's good to have practice. But where the rage is coming in and is in the vertical.
It's on the one down, that whole thing. And again, I have a crucial conversation that I have to have with Liz, and to take this to Liz in such a way that she can hear it, that leaders need to walk the talk, and if leaders are willing to do this, it will influence everybody so significantly. So, I mean, the information is the same for leaders. I will lift it up because I believe that's what I'm supposed to do. And I'm not helpless. I have the ability to share the information in a way that I hope that will allow it to be heard. And I think that we have to continue to try, with each other, and maybe in the verticals that are just above us. Surely we can communicate with our supervisor. If we have issues, we can address them, and I know in our personal, I've already learned, in personal interactions, wow, this is very powerful. So again, it's a methodology. It's a formula. And as I said in the first session, we've done so much already. We've done the SDI. We've done the non-abrasive confrontation. We're doing the circles, and we're achieving so much in terms of how the organization is feeling. I hope when we lift up our findings that it's heard, and that's my hope and my goal in the meeting that I have, in my conversation, that I can present it in such a way that it can be heard and acted on. And I don't know, I can't predict it, but I know that if we never used it with leadership and we applied it to the rest of our lives, I can tell you that this will help you in all of your communications. It's just good stuff. And it works, and it dovetails with all of the things that we've already done. Where are we time-wise? We're almost at the end, aren't we?
Yeah, we have 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. So I kind of wanted you to go into groups and practice, but again, you can practice. I am available, if you have a crucial conversation that you feel you need to have. I don't know if I can, help you craft one that's definitely going to be successful, but I'll sure be willing to help you. If you want to contact me, reach out and we'll spend some time together. And if I can provide guidance, I'm happy to do that. Does anybody have any questions or comments for me as we close out our last 5 minutes?
No hands are currently up, and there isn't, I don't think there's anything I missed in the chat, but if I did miss it, please put
There's
it
a
back
hand.
in the chat. There we go. Susan, go ahead.
Susan?
Yeah, hi, I just wanted to say that it's kind of, it's interesting just going through the conversation. I can feel your commitment, Deb, to the process of, trying to make it work as much as possible for everybody. And it's really hard. It's not an easy thing. I know that leadership does not have an easy task to accommodate everybody's desires, everybody's needs that they have in their particular situation. So it's a tough one. But I feel your commitment, and I just want to praise you for that.
Thank you so much. And you know, leadership has an entirely different story. Leadership is driven by compliance. Leadership is driven by demands in the contracts. Leadership is driven by all the stuff that they're told they have to do to make it possible for us all to be here and do what we do. And the story they tell themselves is, look, you know, this is just how it is. This is what you have to do. We don't have choices here. And there may be a good reason for that story, but there may be times when that story needs to be adjusted too. So it is a challenge to make it happen, but I am working on it, and I hope you all are too. Someone else has their hand. Is that who has their hand up there?
You
can't
know
see.
what I will say, though,
There
really
you
quick,
go.
Go
is
ahead.
in SPED, everything for us is legally binding. And so we have things we have to do by compliance.
Mhm.
We're told all the time by our leadership in there. And we never, I don't know if there's never any fighting between our teams. We all get along really well with our coordinators. They
Mhm.
talk to Barbara when we're needed. So but we also know that we anticipate we're going to be told, hey, this law is now happening, so you have to redo this. Or so I think it just has to do with how leadership is framing it for those that have to receive that information.
And absolutely, because the way in which we deliver information is everything. It's the story that we tell. Here is the information, but the way you deliver it has to do with how well received it is. And I hear frustration from everybody that it's just not delivered in a way that makes sense, and it doesn't seem to be delivered in a way that considers when you guys are in the weeds and you know what's going on. There isn't an openness to hear.
You know what it is when they deliver it to us, there's a lot of compassion for how that will affect our workload and our lives. That has been, anytime someone says, hey, there's 7 more IEPs, sorry, they're being put on you. That's upsetting, but our boss will say to us, I'm really sorry. I know what this does to your time and your life and whatever. So we feel love from it, not,
Yeah.
hey, this needs to get done, get it done.
Well, that's good. That's wonderful. You know, a little appreciation goes a long way. Appreciation and intention, you know, costs nothing and it gives everything. So I think are we at the end, Becca? There's one hand up, I see,
Yeah, we are very close. We've got a minute left. So Beto, if you want to go ahead.
real quick.
Sorry, I don't realize my camera's off. Just 2 things. One of them I talked in the other group, the breakout, is we need communication. You know, at my son's school, he's, you know, they were a Compass and now they're brick and mortar. That's what we want to do. We get a class dojo from a teacher. We get an email from the principal about the school. So we have classroom going on, school going on. We also get them from the superintendent. I think for us as STs, a lot of it comes from us on the messages, but it
Right.
also needs to be like they put a lot of it on the MMU, but unfortunately, a lot of them
Okay.
don't look at the MMU. And if it's something important, it needs to be a single email blast. Hey, this is kind of going on.
Tell us directly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the second thing is for options STs is the beginning of the year, Liz made a change, and she said at one of the meetings, there were 3 things that she basically made changes to us. One is that she got rid of Seesaw. So we had no place. How do we do that? 2, she basically said, all right, I now want, instead of having 2 work samples per LP, I want 5 or 6, depending on the classes. And the third thing she said, we now want to attach the standards.
Okay. That sounds like a lot. I don't know. That sounds like a lot of work to me.
It's not a subtle change.
Yeah.
But the how.
The how isn't there. Yeah, the implementation piece is lacking. So, and I hear that too. I've heard that as well, you know, I mean. Well, you know what? We could talk all day and I'm willing and available for you if you want to continue this conversation. I thank you for coming here. Becca, how many are here? Did very many people come here?
28 currently at the moment. So 26, not including us.
Excellent. So thank you for coming here and sharing this. I would say to you, I learned a lot last week in certification. And and some of you already do this, some of you know how to do this, but it gave me a new perspective on the whole idea about facts and the way you see facts and create your story. You need to take a look at that and reconsider that. So as you go back into your lives, look at this 4-step thing and try it. Because I know that in your close relationships, it will help you communicate more effectively. In our professional relationships, it will as well. And hopefully leadership will be open to having these conversations as well. I can't guarantee it, but that's the whole point of all of this professional development, is that we will all walk the talk and we will all make a commitment to communicating more effectively. So again, thank you for your time. If you need a little uplift in your spirit, stay in the room. We're going to look at Sean Aker and go back over Happiness Advantage and maybe refresh some of the things to help with our perspective. So thank you for being here. Have a next session. If you're coming to mind about revisiting the Happiness Advantage, just stay where you are and we'll start later. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Becca, for all your help. All right, take care. Have a great day. Did you chose to share it with me? We're revisiting today the Happiness Advantage and the whole power of perception, and it all ties into what we've done in the morning, really what I brought to you. Mission and vision is always the same. We're dedicated to this. We have our agreements, and I just hope that you will stay engaged with your cameras on and participate, because that's really important to me. So we live in a transformed world. First time I did this, it was shortly after COVID, and I put up there, we live in an extraordinary world. We've been through extraordinary things. And I just decided that our lives these days are just extraordinary. There are times we're seeing things we've never seen before, making advances we've never made before. Life has all kinds of things happening around us, and COVID changed the way we lived our lives, the way we educate, changed everything. And I went and I had stats, I did this 3 years ago. I had stats then. So I went and got new stats on stress in the workplace. And, I looked at this and went, well, this has always been true. A $300 billion price tag on stress in the US, what it costs companies when their employees are struggling with stress, and all the ways that influences performance and attendance and everything. Huge price tag. Nearly 43%, over half, nearly half, 43% of US workers report feeling stressed during their workday. And here's the biggie. The number increases to 61% for those who have a lower psychological safety situation at work. We all know that psychological safety is necessary for trust. And I continue to present and think about how we can make that and create that. But 61% of people at work are struggling because they don't feel safe. It just seems to me we ought to be able to fix that if we focus and try. These statistics were just interesting to me, that younger workers are more likely to feel tense or stressed during the workday compared to older workers. So look at these stats. 48% of workers 18 to 25 are very stressed in their workplace. 51%, 26 to 43, 42%, and then there's 30%, 58 to 65. And then folks over 65, they're just not stressed at all anymore. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe it's the newer people in the workplace don't know how it works, don't understand the mechanism, so they feel stressed by all those things. But I thought that was interesting. This is, by the way, it's attributed at the bottom where the stats come from. 76% of employees agreed that work stress affects their sleep. They can't sleep at night because the things are going round and round in their head. And 15% of all workers described their workplace as somewhat toxic. So these are workplace conditions across the United States. Interesting stats to look at. Can we do anything to make our lives less stressful? That's the big question. And whether you're a leader or you're a follower or you're both, your gender doesn't matter, your ethnicity doesn't matter. We can do things differently, but you know what? It all begins with you and the choices that you make. No matter what's happening, we have the ability to change our experience, and we all need to do it for ourselves and for the people that we care about. And this is the whole thing about We just did it in Crucial Conversations. You know, your reality is not what people are doing around you. It is how you perceive what people are doing around you and the story that you tell yourself about those behaviors. That's consistent across all the training that we're doing. And it takes personal responsibility to do a difference. And, you know, I put this up in almost every training. Awareness is knowledge, and the implementation of knowledge is power. I can tell you wonderful things about how to improve your life, reduce your stress, find your positive center. I can give you all that information. It's in the PowerPoint, it's in the reporting, but I can't do it. You have to implement that knowledge. And if you do, there will be powerful outcomes. Things we need to look at. We looked at before, we need to check out again because they're all real. They're there, operating in our lives daily. The negativity bias. As human beings, we are programmed to see things negatively. That comes from fight or flight. That means we are always assessing the dangers because we may have to run. All right. And so what are we looking for? We're always looking for what's wrong. What's wrong with the situation? And that literally leads our brain to a negativity bias. You know, my mother lived to be 94, and she lived with me, took care of my son while I traveled. And, you know, I took care of her. She passed away here in our home, you know, and my mother was one of those people, I loved her dearly, that if the situation was 98% good, do you know what my mom would talk about, live with, focus on? The 2%. I never heard any of the good. I just heard that 2% that wasn't quite right. Is there power in positivity? Absolutely. Because when you choose to be positive, you change your brain. And I can't even stress to you, I'm going to share some personal things as we move on. That is so powerful and so important. The impact of EQ. You know, how well do we manage ourselves and how well do we manage our relationships with that? EQ has 4 quadrants. It's self-awareness, awareness of others, self-management, management in our relationship with others. Those are the 4 quadrants of EQ. Then we have RQ, relationship awareness. RQ is rethink, re-diagnose past relationships through the SDI and understand maybe we were wrong about what we thought about that person. Then bring it into the current environment so that you can get to know each other better, build a better relationship, because relationships are what the future's about. And then there's the advent of positive psychology. You know, I've been doing training for a long time, and 20 years ago, well, even more than 20 years ago, oh my God, Deborah, don't say more. We all knew if we were training and teaching that positive attitude made all the difference with employees. I did corporate development for years. I would go to CEOs and say, look, you know, you got to change the environment. You have to make it more positive. You have to show people how. And they would laugh at me. They'll be ridiculous. They just need to, it'll be fine if they just do what they need to do. Well, now with the advent of positive psychology, all the things that we did instinctively, you know, we did intuitively before this research came out, it's all documented in science now, which is very exciting. So can we create a positive world, even happiness from a negative situation? You do, but you've got to change your brain. So I want to share, and I guess I have to do this. Can you do this? Can you click the link since you're a co-host? Kimberly?
No, Deborah, you
I
need
have to do it? Okay, so let's
Yeah.
hope I don't screw this up, you guys. Okay, so this is a very short, it's only 10 minutes. Let's see if it works. Please work, Sean. Why is Sean not speaking?
You can be anything you want.
I'm sorry, you got to watch the ads, you guys. I apologize.
Continue.
There we go.
When I was 7 years old and my sister was just 5 years old, we were playing on top of a bunk bed. I was 2 years older than my sister at the time. I mean, I'm 2 years older than her now, but at the time that meant she had to do everything that I wanted to do, and I wanted to play war. So we were up on top of our bunk beds, and on one side of the bunk bed, I had put out all my G.I. Joe soldiers and weaponry, and on the other side were all my sister's Milos and ponies and ready for a cavalry charge. There are differing accounts of what actually happened that afternoon, but since my sister is not here with us today, let me tell you the true story. which is my sister is a little bit on the clumsy side. And somehow, without any help or push from her older brother at all, suddenly Amy disappeared off the top of the bunk bed and landed with this crash on the floor. And I nervously peered over the side of the bed to see what had befallen my fallen sister, and saw that she had landed painfully on her hands and knees on all fours on the ground. I was nervous because my parents had charged me with making sure that my sister and I played as safely and as quietly as possible. And seeing as how I had accidentally broken Amy's arm just 1 week before, heroically pushing her out of the way of an oncoming imaginary sniper bullet, for which I have yet to be thanked. I was trying as hard as I could. She didn't even see it coming. I was trying as hard as I could to be on my best behavior, and I saw my sister's face this wail of pain and suffering and surprise, threatening to erupt from her mouth and threatening to wake my parents from the long winter's nap for which they had settled. So I did the only thing my little frantic 7-year-old brain could think to do to avert this tragedy. If you have children, you've seen this hundreds of times before. I said, Amy, wait, don't cry, don't cry. Did you see how you landed? No human lands on all fours like that. Amy, I think this means you're a unicorn. Now that was cheating, because there's nothing in the world my sister would want more than not to be Amy, the hurt 5-year-old little sister, but Amy, the special unicorn. Of course, this was an option that was open to her brain at no point in the past. And you could see on my poor, manipulated sister's face conflict, as her little brain attempted to devote resources to feeling the pain and suffering surprise she just experienced, or contemplating her newfound identity as a unicorn. And the latter won out. Instead of crying, instead of ceasing our play, instead of waking my parents with all the negative consequences that would have ensued for me, instead, a smile spread across her face, and she scrambled right back up onto the bunk bed with all the grace of a baby unicorn, with one broken leg. What we stumbled across at this tender age of just 5 and 7, we had no idea at the time, was something that was going to be at the vanguard of a scientific revolution occurring 2 decades later in the way that we look at the human brain. What we had stumbled across is something called positive psychology, which is the reason that I'm here today and the reason that I wake up every morning. When I first started talking about this research outside of academia, out with companies and schools, the very first thing they said to never do is to start your talk with a graph. The very first thing I wanted to do is start my talk with a graph. This graph looks boring, but this graph is the reason that I get excited and wake up every morning. And this graph doesn't even mean anything. It's fake data. What we found is if I got this data back sitting you here in the room, I would be thrilled, because there's very clearly a trend that's going on there, and that means that I can get published, which is all that really matters. The fact that there's one weird red dot that's up above the curve, there's one weird in the room, you know who you are, I saw you earlier. That's no problem. That's no problem, as most of you know, because I can just delete that dot. I can delete that dot because that's clearly a measurement error, and we know that's a measurement error because it's messing up my data. So one of the very first things that we teach people in economics and statistics and business and psychology courses is how, in a statistically valid way, do we eliminate the weirdos? How do we eliminate the outliers? So that we can find the line of best fit, which is fantastic if I'm trying to find out how many Advil the average person should be taking, too. But if I'm interested in potential, if I'm interested in your potential, or for happiness or productivity or energy or creativity, what we're doing is we're creating the cult of the average with science. If I ask a question like, how fast can the child learn how to read in a classroom? Scientists change the answer to, how fast does the average child learn how to read in that classroom? And then we tailor the class right towards the average. Now, if you fall below the average on this curve, then psychologists get thrilled, because that means you're either depressed or you have disorder, or hopefully both. We're hoping for both, because our business model is if you come into a therapy session with one problem, we want to make sure you leave knowing you have 10. So you'll keep coming back over and over again. We'll go back into your childhood if necessary, but eventually what we want to do is to make you normal again. But normal is merely average. And what I posit, and what positive psychology posits, is that if we study what is merely average, we will remain merely average. Then instead of deleting those positive outliers, what I intentionally do is come into a population like this one and says, why? Why is it that some of you are so high above the curve in terms of your intellectual ability, athletic ability, musical ability, creativity, energy levels, your resiliency in the face of challenge, your sense of humor? Whatever it is, instead of deleting you, what I want to do is study you. Because maybe we can glean information, not just how to move people up to the average, but how we can move the entire average up at our companies and schools worldwide. The reason this graph is important to me is when I turn on the news, it seems like the majority of the information is not positive. In fact, it's negative. Most of it's about murder, corruption, diseases, natural disasters. And very quickly, my brain starts to think that's the accurate ratio of negative to positive in the world. What that's doing is creating something called the medical school syndrome, which if you know people who have been to medical school during the first year of medical training, as you read through a list of all the symptoms and diseases that could happen, suddenly you realize you have all of them. I have a brother-in-law named Bobo, which is a whole nother story. Bobo married Amy the unicorn. Bobo called me on the phone from Yale Medical School. And Bobo said, Sean, I have leprosy. Which even at Yale is extraordinarily rare. But I had no idea how to console poor Bobo because he had just gotten over an entire week of menopause. See, what we're finding is it's not necessarily the reality that shapes us, but the lens through which your brain views the world that shapes your reality. And if we can change the lens, not only can we change your happiness, we can change every single educational and business outcome at the same time. When I applied to Harvard, I applied on a dare. I didn't expect to get in, and my family had no money for college. When I got a military scholarship 2 weeks later, they allowed me to go. Suddenly, something that wasn't even a possibility became a reality. When I went there, I assumed everyone else would see it as a privilege as well, that they'd be excited to be there. Even if you're in a classroom full of people smarter than you, you'd be happy just to be in that classroom, which is what I felt. But what I found there is while some people experienced that, when I graduated after my 4 years and then spent the next 8 years living in the dorms with the students, Harvard asked me to, wasn't that guy. But what happened, I was an officer of Harvard to counsel students through the difficult 4 years. And what I found in my research, my teaching is that these students, no matter how happy they were with their original success of getting into the school, 2 weeks later, their brains were focused not on the privilege of being there, nor on their philosophy or their physics. Their brain was focused on the competition, the workload, the hassles, the stresses, the complaints. When I first went in there, I walked into the freshman dining hall, which is where my friends from Waco, Texas, which is where I grew up. I know some of you have heard of it. When they come to visit me, they look around, they say, this freshman dining hall looks like something out of Hogwarts in the movie Harry Potter, which it does. This is Hogwarts in the movie Harry Potter, and that's Harvard. And when they see this, they say, Sean, why do you waste your time studying happiness at Harvard? Seriously, what does a Harvard student possibly have to be unhappy about? Embedded within that question is the key to understanding the science of happiness. Because what that question assumes is that our external world is predictive of our happiness levels. When in reality, if I know everything about your external world, I can only predict 10% of your long-term happiness. 90% of your long-term happiness is predicted not by the external world, but by the way your brain processes the world. And if we change it, if we change our formula for happiness and success, what we can do is change the way that we can then affect reality. What we found is that only 25% of job successes are predicted by IQ. 75% of job successes are predicted by your optimism levels, your social support, and your ability to see stress as a challenge instead of as a threat. I talked to a boarding school up in New England, probably the most prestigious boarding school, and they said, we already know that. So every year, instead of just teaching our students, we also have a wellness week, and we're so excited. Monday night, we have the world's leading expert coming in to speak about adolescent depression. Tuesday night is school violence and bullying. Wednesday night's eating disorders. Thursday night is illicit drug use. And Friday night, we're trying to decide between risky sex or happiness. I said that's most people's Friday night. Which I'm glad you liked, but they did not like that at all. Silence on the phone. And into the silence, I said, I'd be happy to speak at your school, but just, that's not a wellness week. That's a sickness week. What you've done is you've outlined all the negative things that can happen, but not talked about the positive. The absence of disease is not health. Here's how we get to health. We need to reverse the formula for happiness and success. In the past 3 years, I've traveled to 45 different countries, working with schools and companies in the midst of an economic downturn. And what I found is that most companies and schools follow a formula for success, which is this: if I work harder, I'll be more successful. And if I'm more successful, then I'll be happier. That undergirds most of our parenting styles, our managing styles, the way that we motivate our behavior. And the problem is it's scientifically broken and backwards for 2 reasons. First, every time your brain has a success, you just change the goalpost of what success looked like. You got good grades, now you have to get better grades. You got into a good school, now you have to get a better school. You got a good job, now you have to get a better job. You hit your sales target, we're going to change your sales target. And if happiness is on the opposite side of success, your brain never gets there. What we've done is we push happiness over the cognitive horizon as a society. And that's because we think we have to be successful, then we'll be happier. The real problem is our brains work in the opposite order. If you can raise somebody's level of positivity in the present, then their brain experiences what we now call a happiness advantage, which is your brain at positive performs significantly better than it does at negative, neutral, or stressed. Your intelligence rises, your creativity rises, your energy levels rise. In fact, what we found is that every single business outcome improves. Your brain at positive is 31% more productive than your brain at negative, neutral, or stressed. You're 37% better at sales. Doctors are 19% faster, more accurate at coming up with the correct diagnosis when positive instead of negative, neutral, or stressed, which means we can reverse the formula. If we can find a way of becoming positive in the present, then our brains work even more successfully as we're able to work harder, faster, and more intelligently. What we need to be able to do is reverse this formula so we can start to see what our brains are actually capable of. Because dopamine, which floods into your system when you're positive, has two functions. Not only does it make you happier, it turns on all the learning centers in your brain, allowing you to adapt to the world in a different way. We found that there are ways you can train your brain to be able to become more positive. In just a 2-minute span of time, done for 21 days in a row, we can actually rewire your brain, allowing your brain to actually work more optimistically and more successfully. We've done these things in research now in every single company that I've worked with, getting them to write down 3 new things that they're grateful for 21 days in a row, 3 new things each day. And at the end of it, their brain starts to retain a pattern of scanning the world, not for the negative, but for the positive first. Journaling about one positive experience you've had over the past 24 hours allows your brain to relive it. Exercise teaches your brain that your behavior matters. We find that meditation allows your brain to get over the cultural ADHD that we've been creating by trying to do multiple tasks at once, and allows our brains to focus on the task at hand. And finally, random acts of kindness or conscious acts of kindness. We get people when they open up their inbox to write one positive email, praising or thanking somebody in their social support network. And by doing these activities and by training your brain, just like we train our bodies, what we found is we can reverse the formula for happiness and success. And in doing so, not only create ripples of positivity, but create a real revolution. Thank you very much.
Hold on, you guys. I don't know how to get out of this. Escape, I guess, huh?
Up at the top, Deborah, go to the happiness advantage. See at the top of your top bar.
This one up here?
Yeah, go to the first one, the happiness advantage.
I couldn't see that because the bar was in the way.
Yeah, just push on it.
Okay.
Don't exit out, but oh yeah, you exited it out.
Yeah, I've been doing this all day. I'm so sorry, you guys. Let me
No
share.
problem.
It is a problem. It makes me crazy. Okay, so I want you to think about that. You know, what we're going to do is we're actually going to put you into, do I need to click out of this and bring it back again?
Yeah, well,
You want to, why don't you share your screen? Should I just get out of here and you share, can you share your screen?
yeah.
Wait.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't want to click out of the meeting. I'm scared if I click stuff, I'll leave and disappear. I don't want to do that. There we go. Okay.
Hey, do you see it now? I will
Yeah, now I'm on, okay, let me see if it's coming. Is
you skip ahead.
Yeah, okay. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to put you into groups. How many do we have, Kimberly?
We have 40 attendees.
Okay, so let's just maybe put everybody in groups of 4 and let's give what we said 10 minutes. And no, let's do like 8 minutes. And what's your takeaway from this thing? So that's what we want you to do. What's your takeaway from the presentation? And then we'll come back and I'll ask 1 or 2 of the group. So let's give them what, 8 minutes? And the question is just, what is your takeaway from Sean Aker? I love him so much. I watch it periodically just to refresh my mind. I find him so insightful and motivational, and he says so much in that little frame of time. So, okay, we'll be back in 8 minutes.
How many breakout rooms, Deborah?
Let's put 4 in each.
4 in each.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 40, put 10, put 4 in each. And just share this one, just share your takeaways. What stood out to you most?
I'm sorry, I'm not too experienced with this room thing either. Let me try again. Okay.
But you know what? I'm going to change things. Okay, so let's not do a room right now. Let's just open your mics if you would, and let's have 3 or 4 of you share. You know, what was your takeaway from this? And we'll do groups at the very end when I do that activity, Kim. Okay.
Okay.
So who'll come off their mic and talk to me, please? Several of you, tell me, what'd you think of Sean? You may have seen it before. What'd you take away this time?
Just the fact that you can train your brain, like he said, with those practices. I love that part.
It's huge, and you know what? It works. And it works, and I will share with you as we move forward. I've just been there, and I used all of the practices to get out of a very dark place. So, it works. It really does reprogram your brain. We have that power. Somebody else?
It matters how you reframe events in your mind, and how you reframe it affects how you perceive it or react to it.
And again, that's another iteration of what we've talked about in Crucial Conversations. Crucial Conversations says the frame is the story you tell yourself. It's not what happened, it's what you tell yourself about what happened. He's saying the same thing. We have this lens, and that's the happiness advantage lens. When things are happening all around you, you have the control to put that lens on and choose to see it see what's positive. It's not easy, but you know what? You can do it. You absolutely can do it. Anybody else?
We've got Jen.
Jen?
Yeah, sorry. I keep my teachers like, raise your virtual hand, wait till you're called on. And so here I am, like, waiting patiently. So I apologize. I loved everything about that. A couple of people on my team are in here. I'm a very positive person. The cup is always half full. My husband is the cup is always half empty, but I'm always trying to find the positivity and the joy. And so a couple of things that he said that stuck out to me. One of the big ones was hold on, I wrote it down. 90% of long-term happiness comes from how your brain processes the world. And so he talked about how he doesn't watch the news because all that's on the news is murder and killing and death and all the things, and it's sad. And so we don't watch the news in my family. I don't know if that's to each their own, but we like to find joy in our world at home. The other thing that he said that I thought was really interesting was raise your positivity, like how you feel in the present will give you that happiness advantage, which I thought was really cool. So I try to always tell my own children and even my teachers, like, if you are looking at the world today, what is my joy and positivity today is how I'm going to end up being happier in the long term with this happiness advantage. I tell my kids, do not let anybody steal your joy. So if they're choosing friends or being around people, choose people and be around people who bring you joy. Don't let them steal your joy. If they're mean and they're bullies, bye, like, they can go, because that is your joy. Nobody gets to steal that. So I loved everything he said. I wrote 5 million other things down that I'm going to put in my pocket. But yeah, this was wonderful, Deborah. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And is the link to the video in the slides? Because
Yes, it is.
thank you. I appreciate it. And Taylor, I love that you have your hand up too. Like, she was the next one. So Taylor, go for it.
Go for it. And then we'll
And I
move
was going to say, Taylor's next, and then we have Katie Hooper. I have the rooms ready, 3 in each, whenever we're ready to go in the rooms, Deborah. So you let me know.
a little bit more, and then we'll go in and talk about it. Well, okay, one more comment, and then we'll move on.
We've got two more people with hands raised, Taylor and Katie Hooper.
Okay, Taylor, go for it. Yeah.
Thank you. I just really quick wanted to just kind of, the thing that stuck out to me the most, everything was fantastic, but gratitude journal, I practice doing that every day. Sit down and find 3 to 5 things that I am really, really grateful for or appreciative of. And it's this small minor change of finding new things, because now that I'm thinking back, it's like, yeah, I'm grateful for pretty much the same things, which is, obviously a good thing, but it's the act of retraining my brain to constantly be scanning my environment for what more positive things can I find, rather than just being like, this is great, this is great, this is great, okay, moving on. Not just checking off those boxes to say, oh yeah, I practice gratitude all the time, but really being intentional about why am I doing this? Why am I practicing gratitude other than I want to feel better? Well, of course you can't feel better if you're just grateful for a handful of things, but it's really impactful just to see this just a small minor change of still practicing gratitude, but now you're finding new things. That was really
And it really does reprogram your brain. I mean, that's the astonishing thing about it. You begin to view things differently. I've used this the first time, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years ago when I first discovered it. And I'm telling you, it got me out of a very difficult place, and it works. And it changes how you view the world. Okay, we got time for one more hand, and then we need to move on because I want to put you in groups to strategize. So I don't want to use all the time. It's already late. Okay. One more.
I'm good. It's okay.
What? Was there one more hand? I thought there was.
Katie?
Katie?
No, it's fine.
Go ahead with the groups.
Yeah.
Okay, so Deborah, what are we discussing in the groups, did you say?
Okay, well, we're not quite ready for the groups. Can you put the slide up? I don't- where you are after the debrief on Sean, and let's just work the slide deck. Can you put it in presentation mode
Yeah.
so we can see it?
All right, here I go. Okay, what, we are on,
Now, what's the slide right after? It's just there's Sean there. Right after that, that's our takeaway. So what's the next slide? We're going to go through them quickly. Okay, can you put that in presentation mode? And make it bigger so we can see it? There we go. Awesome. So again, I'm going to go through this quickly. So get ready to click, Kim. The moment you know what you do, you become accountable. That's like we hear all this about reframing our brain and doing things that reframes our brain. And we go, yeah, that's great. But we don't do anything. If you're not accountable, you won't change. Go ahead, Kim. Click. So how we move forward is really an individual thing. And it's about what we choose. That lens piece is so important. And we hear it in everything. We hear it in the SDI. We see it in Crucial Conversations. We've seen it in Radical Candor. It's your lens on things that determines your world. Kim, go. And I just put this picture in here. I don't choose these pictures lightly, but you know, you can get in those dark places, the back of that hall where you're trying to get out, and it's dark and it's closed in and it's very negative, and you can get absorbed by all that darkness. And the positivity shift in your brain allows you to see the light and to find your way out of that darkness. And for me, that's happened personally a couple of times, just recently around the fires. So that picture shows how it can feel and how it changes when you reprogram your brain. Hey, Kim. Again, it's not your world, it's how you view your world. It's the lens you put on it. Okay. We're gonna go through these quickly so I can get you to groups. And I always do the big so what. So what? I mean, if we change the way we perceive the world, you know, can we affect our realities? We absolutely can. It doesn't mean the world around you changes. I'm not saying what's happening doesn't happen. It does happen, but what we see changes by the way our brain is programmed. Remember, that negativity is programmed into our brain from fight flight. So we do that instinctively. Okay, go ahead. You know, when you're in the negative and in the darkness, again, I don't choose these things lightly. It can feel very gray. It can feel like that side. But when you think and change how you think and change how you approach things, it really does affect what you see and how you live your life. Okay. So we have to choose it. Let's choose it. Go ahead. Next one. So what can we do? We already talked, he talked about the gratitude journal. Gratitude practice begins with this gratitude journal begins the actual reprogramming. And just as you shared, you know, it changes what you look for in the world in which you live. We have to own our responsibilities. We have to choose, and choosing to do random or conscious acts of kindness. I do them all the time. It can be a small thing, like if you see somebody who looks nice, walk up to them and say, you know, you really look nice today. If there's somebody that has 2 items and I have a basket full, I let them, hey, why don't you go in front of me? Just step in front of me. I had an experience with a woman who was a really rude cashier. And when I got up there, I said, well, looks like you're not having a great day. And she broke down because her dad had just been diagnosed with blindness and she didn't know what to do. And she was being ugly to me because of the conflict inside of her. I bought her a bouquet of roses and just left them on the stand. Here, I can't help your situation, but I can let you know I understand. And here, feel better. Those things not only change their lives, they change yours. Go ahead. So let's do it. Go ahead and put them in groups, and this is what I want you to do. Go to the next slide so we can see what I'm asking them. Oh, no, go back. I guess there isn't the next slide. So what I want you to do, go back to the other slide, yeah. To the activity slide, Kim. So Kim's gonna put you in groups of 3. And what I want you to do is tell me, what are you going to do starting right now that will help you reprogram your brain into the model that, Sean talks about? What can you do to change the lens you have on the world, and what are you willing to do? So go ahead and put them in their groups of 3. And we'll give, how much time is it? We'll take, let's take about 8 minutes here to share too.
Okay.
And then we'll come back. Are you good, Kim? I have groups up on the screen so people can choose to go in there. Okay.
Yeah, they just joined their groups.
Your groups.
See where I am.
Everybody going in okay? Kathy, do you need help in? Okay, there we go. We lost our slides. I'll try to share mine while they're in their group. Are you there, Kim? Share it all. Kim, are you in there or no? So much trouble sharing a screen in my life. Hi, Kim. I've never had so much trouble sharing a screen in my life. I really don't know what's going on. Everybody coming back?
Sorry, I was on mute. Everybody is coming back. I don't know if that was too soon, if we needed some more time.
Did you give them 8 minutes?
No, I think it was, how long was that? Just a couple minutes.
Okay.
Not like 2. I don't know. But
Well, I don't think it was 8 minutes, that's for sure.
We were deep in conversation when it got off.
Sorry.
I'm trying to see, okay, so I did the groups. I'm trying to see the timer, how I set the timer on this. Sorry, I'm not, does anyone know? Because I haven't done a ton of breakout rooms before.
If
I would
you,
say it was like 3 minutes.
Where do you change the?
Kimberly, are you able to make me a co-host so I can help out?
Yeah.
That'd be great. Let me see
Just
if I
because
can.
not that I'm a professional with
Yeah,
breakout,
yeah.
but
No, I'd love
No, but
your
you
help.
live in that world.
I live in the world.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely
I'm
right. Fine. I live in.
You should be a co-host now.
Did you do it, Deborah?
You did, yeah.
Okay.
Oh no,
Deborah,
Jenna,
you
you
need
had Jenna,
Yeah,
you get
made
it.
me a co-host on accident.
God, you're it.
I need to make the co-host. I'm sorry.
Jen Tatum.
Jen
Yeah,
Tatum.
I did. Okay, and I'll make you a co-host too. Everybody can co-host.
It's
There
one
you go.
big happy
Okay, Jen,
family.
go for it.
Okay, let me see here. All right, we'll recreate. And
We don't have a lot of time left.
that's okay. You're making me feel the pressure, Deborah.
I feel it all the time. 55 minutes. Oh my God.
Do it faster, Tatum.
We're at 11:42 and we go till noon.
We go to,
Right.
no, to 11. Well, I guess we could because we go to lunch then. Yeah. But
Okay, so Jen, you're sharing, you're doing 8 minutes in the rooms?
well, we don't have
I
time for
mean,
8 minutes now. I mean, let's,
already set up, so I gotta go in and like.
okay. I'm sorry, you guys. Thank you for understanding.
Nothing to apologize for. It's Zoom.
It is
Zoom
Zoom.
behaves like Zoom behaves.
Yeah.
We do live Zoom lives.
Oh,
don't
here we go. So Kimberly, just to let you know, on the bottom left, there's a little wheel, and you go
Okay.
down there, and it says auto close breakout rooms after. And so we want to say 8 minutes. Is that what we're
So are
saying?
you guys willing to stay till noon?
I think. I mean, it's 5 minutes till.
Well, okay, so I don't think we have 8. I guess we can do 8 and then we'll debrief quickly. That's fine. And go.
All right. So that's set. Let's try this again.
Okay, go for it.
Thanks, Jen.
Don't thank me yet. Everybody's invited, so hopefully it works. 8 minutes.
All right, see you soon. Kathy, did you want to go into a room or?
Yes, I am. Sorry about that.
Okay. Do we need to put you in?
Nope, I got it.
Okay, cool. Everybody's coming back.
Great job, Deborah, as usual.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry we've had all the mechanical, but I guess the content is still there, you know.
No, it's awesome.
Or is everybody coming back, or did everybody just decide to go to lunch?
Maybe they all left. Oh, yeah.
You came back a little early. So welcome back, everybody. So did you have fruitful discussions?
My little group got so deep, part 1 and part 2, and it's always like 1 second, boom.
Can you share about it? I mean, can you share? Because we have a few minutes left if we go to 12, which is 5 minutes extra. So would love to share your insights and what you can go away doing that will help. Go
Well, we
ahead.
were basically just identifying the need for kindness in the world. And there's so many people, it was Sylvia that said, I can just almost feel it when someone, like, even if I think about someone at some point and I go, oh, you know what? I'm going to reach out to them, and they'll just pop into her head. And sometimes they're fine and they go get coffee, and sometimes they're not fine and they go get coffee. So she just genuinely has that intuition. And the other conversation was a little bit more private, so I'm not going to bring that up. But yeah, just genuinely how but teachers and people that work with kids in schools are genuinely more aware of that kind of stuff and empathetic. And we do pay attention to kids very intently, so it kind of bleeds out to paying attention to people, because kids become adults.
I
So
think you
that's all.
already are people. They grow up, don't they?
Yeah.
And they have wise insights at very young ages if you can tune in and allow them to tell you. So I think that's really important. And you're right. I think that the world just cries, is hungry for kindness and consideration. And, one of the things that I will do is when I have somebody in my life and I value them, I'll just drop them a text and say, I just want you to know how much I value you in my life and how much you make my life better. And thank you for that. That takes so little time. But imagine receiving that in your busy, schedule that we all struggle through. Imagine opening up your text or your email and seeing something like that. Wow, it's a day changer. Who else can share? I don't have a lot of time for, I'm terrible about raising hands. Just come off your mic and share with us. Oh, I know you had great discussions. Come on.
I'll share. Excuse me. Not particularly about what we spoke about, but just piggybacking off of what was said, that I had a recent experience with an LC that the last few months she's been struggling a lot and having health issues, and she shared with me that she was undergoing chemo, and I kind of just could do my best to help support her in any way, like LC responsibility wise. But our connection we had yesterday, I kind of created a safe environment for her to feel like if she wanted to talk about it. And she did open up to me a lot, and it was literally nothing about school or Compass or her scholar. It was about her experience, what she's going through. And there were tears, and it was just like a really amazing experience, I think, in the end, because she felt safe and supported, that she could share with me. And I felt very grateful that she felt safe enough to share all of that. And it obviously helped me understand more clearly what she's going through and what I can do better to help her in the end. So
absolutely.
And we found positivity through it, and like worked together and like got closer, and it was just a pretty amazing experience. Obviously unfortunate experience that she has to go through that, but
you had the dialogue about it, and that made it an incredible impact on how you view it, and I'm sure on how she views you and how she views what her scholar has to do. So, or scholars, whichever that may be. So I mean, it's we are full of stories that are unrelated to why we're talking to each other right now. We all have stories. One of the things that I see all the time and really believe in is be kind, because you have no idea what somebody's going through. You have no idea, because people don't bring it to you. So kindness doesn't cost anything. Appreciation is free. You just have to choose to do it. And the astonishing thing is, that when you make an act of kindness, an intentional act of kindness or a random act of kindness, not only does that, as I said earlier, not only does that change the life of the person for whom you gave the kindness, but it changes you. It builds your positivity. It changes your filter on the world. And so I think that, thank you for staying a little beyond, 12 o'clock. And I know that if we had an hour and a half, we could share on and on. That's something I dream of, is an hour and a half for a class. That would be very exciting. But thank you for the morning. Thank you for being with us. If you have anything that you want to add or share, you always feel free to reach out to me. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate you so much, Deborah. Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure, always. Take care. Have a good weekend too. Did I lose? Is Kimberly gone? Yep, Kimberly's gone. It's just me. That's terrible.